I feel like this is the complete opposite of the level design podcast, because you had a much more smooth in-ram, right? Like your intro music was quite chill.
Yeah, I don't know. We had a kind of a funky little maraca thing going. I can't remember the music we had covered. That music, right, weirdly enough, we had to get somebody else to write another theme tune because our original theme tune, I had full license access to it, right? But was used in an advert. And can you imagine my brain when the music for the Level Design podcast appears on TV? You know, you're like there in the kitchen listening to like whatever, like suddenly an advert comes on with your music on it. And I was like, what the hell? And afterwards, we started getting content ID demonetized because on YouTube we had the music. And I kept on going like, do you have a license? It's like, I have a license.
Oh
and
my
it's because
God,
they bought the music. I don't know if they bought the full license or something like that, but they went full content ID with it.
Bastards.
So we got so we had I said yeah, let's bring something in, and I think I should have gone more rock, much more energy, but I don't know, we're kind of chill. So
big rock, big energy. Speaking of, let's cue the music. If that doesn't put you in the mood for some podcast goodness, I don't know what does. Hello, I'm Tommy Thompson. Welcome. This is episode 19. It's on the screen if you're watching the video version of the Branching Factor podcast, brought to you courtesy of the wonderful people over at Model AI. And once again, we got another guest. I'm just racking up all the guests at the moment. This is the whole plan, is I'm trying to get people that are far more interesting than me to come and join me on this year program. And so the interesting person du jour, please welcome Mark Drew, who is the founder and creative director at Villainous Games.
Well, how you doing, buddy? I'm doing good. Like after that intro, I am ready for anything.
Pumped
and primed. Let's do it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. So actually, we're going to be talking all about Harvest Hunt, which is Mark's brand new game from over at Villainous Games, which is coming out on May 22nd. That's correct.
That's right, yeah. So I don't know when your podcast will be out, but it's like soon. It feels very soon.
Oh, but we'll definitely be out before the launch, and we'll also hopefully. Also, I think a key thing as we go forward for our video listeners, video list, that sentence, that term doesn't quite line up, is I will have a bunch of footage from Harvest Hunt throughout this conversation, because I have been playing the demo that's out now on Steam. So I have actually been playing the demo and getting a chance to try it out myself over the past few days. So you will get to see a little bit of it in action while we're talking. But before we get to that, a quick reminder, if you haven't watched the previous 18 episodes or listened to the previous 18 episodes of this audio medium, Branching Factor, the whole point of our podcast is to demystify all things games. Like over on AI in games, I'm always trying to demystify artificial intelligence for games, but I thought, why don't we just have a broader remit? And so myself and the rest of the co-host team, we're always trying to just give you a little bit more of a peek and insight into a lot of the realities of the games industry and game development, and hopefully in a moderately entertaining and intelligent way. And that's usually why we bring in the guests, because they sound more entertaining and intelligent than I do. And all of it is brought to you courtesy of the wonderful crowdfunding supporters that we have for AI in Games over on Patreon, as well as on Substack as well. So you can head on over to aiingames.com to find out more about how you can support the show and get it ad-free and submit questions. And in fact, Mark, you have also been a long-time supporter of AI in Games over the years, which...
Very worth it. Yeah.
That was how we met, wasn't it? Like, I'm trying... Games Forum.
It was Games Forum, but I don't think I was a member of the Patreon. I heard your voice from across the room.
So I tell this story to a lot of people about... Games Forum, which was an event ran by George Osborne, funnily enough, co-host of the podcast. I'm trying to remember what your Games Forum was. It's pre-pandemic at this point.
It wasn't. Yeah, I can't remember. It was in. I remember being able to see London Bridge from it.
Yeah. It was like right on the river, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, apparently Games Forum London is a very common name for an event. So That's not helping. I want to say about 2018 or 2019 or something like that.
It's around that. Yeah, I was getting into games, getting more seriously into games. And I was doing what you're doing in a podcast, but in person, going up to the game developers. What do you do? How do you do it? What's the real way how to do this? So that's kind of...
Yeah, because you were the host of the Level Design podcast, which... Is that now ended? I actually haven't checked in.
Hiatus. I think that the out of hobbies to have, making a game is kind of takes up a lot more time than you think. And doing another podcast as well, it's kind of like I can't bifurcate my brain enough to get in there. And I think it would be kind of rude me getting like people from Level Design. So how exactly do you do that? Because I'm making a game right now and I'm going to totally steal this.
I mean, to be fair, like an awful lot of the work I do supporting developers now is because I've read so much and learned so much from other people. Now it's like I am this just weird encyclopedia of what is useless knowledge to 99% of the people that I meet, and then other people going, "Oh my god, this is great," and they want to pick my brains. But yeah, so we met at Games Forum. I think we'd spoken a few times on Twitter critically. I think beforehand, back when Twitter was a fun space for game developers to chat to each other. So that's a dated reference.
Wow. Yeah. But it's turned a little bit, the sting has appeared on the X's tail, hasn't it?
But I remember I was at Games Forum and you just managed to make your way through this entire crowd of people and you got there. Because I mean, I knew what you look, because critically the social media interaction is important because I knew what you looked like.
Right.
Because also you had your majestic mustache, of course. Whereas my avatar on Twitter was like a pixelized version of my face, so nobody knew what I looked like. I didn't have an actual photo at the time, but you just tuned in on my voice and then like crossed this entire room with a couple of hundred people in it, and then
I think I shouted, Tommy Johnson.
I think that was it. I'm pretty sure I was chatting to like Adam Campbell and like Chela Ramanan, I think, and you just rocked up like, "Hello." But yeah, what how things have changed, I guess, because also the last time I saw you was, I want to say EGX last year. I think was the last time we bumped into each other.
Were we showing? Were you, because we were showing at EGX last year? So
yes, we didn't have a proper conversation. I must have saw you for all of about 60 seconds because I think you were busy, and I wasn't. I didn't have anything to do, and I could just, and I'm like, I'll leave him to it. Like, I'll give him a wave, and then off you go, as is often the case. But yeah, and that's because you were out showing the Harvest Hunt. So let's get into it. I guess set the scene for us. Harvest Hunt. Tell us all about it. What is this game that's coming out?
In X days, in like a month or so. Well, Harvest Hunt is a first-person single-player roguelike, is what we describe it for the games industry folk. But the premise that we put forward is that in the village of Luna Nova, there is a monster called a Devourer going out there, and the village, draws a short straw, and for a whole season, they choose one of them to be the warden to go out and harvest the resource called ambrosia, which keeps the village alive, and hunt down the monster called the Devourer, who is also poisoning the ambrosia. So you got a certain amount of time to be able to do that. The game is a number of seasons, and each season a different warden goes out. So you got different abilities as different wardens, different people from villages, and you unlock tools and weapons that help you hunt the Devourer, but also you are unlocking tools, abilities, and lore to give you the idea of what's actually happened, because there's some very odd things going on. But we have this mechanic that we use cards to give you the abilities, and you're able to choose abilities or burn cards to say that you're not going to use that ability again, or that tool, or whatever. And the whispers are set up what the night is going to look like. So every night that you go out, you have some whispers to say, there's going to be the monster's going to have a certain mutation or things like that. So it's basically a scary horror game in which you are alone in a field with a pitchfork against a very ugly, horrible monster that that knows where you are, or might not, and has some nasty fiendish friends to get in your way of harvesting and keeping your village alive.
Like it was interesting even just playing the demo, I think, because already the breadth, you begin to get a taste quite early, I think, in that demo, even of just the breadth of where this game goes, because you get to play, I think in the demo, is it just one season, I think.
Just one season, yeah. In fact, I think the demo is just less than one season, but yeah, each season has got 5 nights or so, and I think the demo I can't remember, it might be 3 or 4 nights. We have a number of builds.
Just getting the ability to go through the day-night cycle, understanding that this is your character that you've got, and then like very quickly, once you learn the basics of you need to go into the environment, collect enough ambrosia. Typically each mission has an objective, right? And then I think the opening mission is like collect 40 ambrosia, which is actually quite easy to do without without catching the devourer's attention. Right. But it's enough to help set the template for what's going forward. And then very quickly it's like, hey, now the devourer's got some new effect that's going to influence the next run. Right. You have abilities that you might have, but also like equipment, and even where does your equipment deploy, and getting you to learn the layout of the field as well, which I thought was interesting. So very early on, I'm having to think, okay, where is everything? And how do I get from A to B? And how do I do that efficiently, and knowing full well that if I run around and make too much noise, I'm going to get the devourer's attention, or if I'm running around with a flashlight on all the time. And at this point, if you're watching this on video, there'll be plenty of footage, no doubt. You'll see all this in action. I thought it was it's interesting because it's kind of pulling on different threads. So you've got this roguelike element, but also it's very much steeped in like first person horror games that, you don't really see those two kind of things cross over.
Right, yeah, because it's a very difficult thing. I think we've hit it. I think Harvest is hitting it. But one of the difficult things about horror is the replayability, right? So if you go for a standard, I'm going to pick on a random game, but like I'm going to get the name on Resident Evil 7, for example. Like, right. So if you were to play that again and again and again, that intro, that appears, they're all staged events that after the third time, you're going to go, and monster appears, and thingy attacks, and, and I'm not belittling Resident Evil 7. It's an amazing game, so don't. No.
I agree, though. That's like a fundamental.
And that's very difficult to keep up, right? It's a challenge to keep up. So kind of how we've approached it is this kind of risk-reward kind of mechanic throughout everything that we're doing. We're going, okay, great, you can now be more silent, but you're going to have less health, for example. I don't know, like we're trying to always balance the night so that there's always a challenge there for you, like something fun that's going to happen to you. So you might get into this point of like, hey, I can just go through the water. The devourer is not going to get me in the water, right? But the next night we're going to add some fiends in the water. The fiends are the kind of sensors of the devourer. So like they're going to call, like if you step in it, you might get poisoned, but also the devourer now is going to know where you are. So we're always trying to balance like the, different parts of like, hey, I can now do this, but but it can now spew poison or whatever.
And I quite like I always enjoy roguelikes that give you that flexibility to try different loadouts, and particularly, like you say, like having the ability for it to manipulate core aspects of the game so that you might get a boon from this, but it also has a major detracting effect. I say this, I'm knee deep in Balatro at the moment.
Oh, right. Okay. I haven't played that yet.
Right. So imagine it's because Balatro is basically roguelike card games. Where the jokers fundamentally change how you play the game quite drastically. Okay. And it's like, all right, for a given playthrough, I'm now going to be focusing heavily on 2 pairs, or I'm going to be focusing very heavily on straights. And it all comes down to, or I'm going to continue to go for flushes with like hearts and diamonds, because that's how my jokers are configured to really maximize my scoring. And so I like this idea that being applied to a horror game, because, I think, as you say, Resident Evil 7 is great. I do feel one of the biggest problems with Resident Evil 7 is it didn't really warrant a second playthrough that much, to be honest. Whereas I thought Resident Evil 8, I thought kind of addressed that slightly because it was less, it wasn't as focused on that first person horror element. But even then, like everybody's favorite horror game in and around the AI and Games YouTube channel, Alien Isolation, suffers from
of course,
it's too long. I will put it out there. That game is too long.
I didn't finish it. I watched you finish it. In all honesty, I don't know, because it's too long. I think it gets to a part that the cat and mouse mechanic goes really well. That's the enjoyable part of that game. But I think it starts getting to the alien lore part towards the end, right? Don't want to spoil it for anybody. I watched you play it. Watch Tommy play it. But you've got this like good game of cat and mouse that you could make a whole game around, but you have to be adding challenges, right? Like, I don't know. I'm trying to refactor Alien Isolation into our game, but
I think critically, like, you have much more creative license on how you can manipulate it. Whereas there's certain, I think, like, to look at Alien, there's very specific trappings of both the genre and of the IP that then you expect to emerge by virtue of Alien. All right, well, if it's a xenomorph, then maybe there's going to be things that are tying into the larger lore of the xenomorphs, and then also, hey, I'm going to have a flamethrower and a motion tracker at some point because
because that's the game, that's the IP, right? You can't suddenly throw like you got pitchforks. I mean, that's what they tried to do in Alien 3, but I'm getting carried away because I'm a massive Aliens fan.
We could dive into the minutia of Alien 3, but let's get back to Harvest Hunt, I guess. Right. So critically, I remember you talking to me about this game 2 years ago. We had a conversation at Develop. When you were, I think, in very early phase yourself and Valentina, who's your lead designer.
Game director, yeah.
There we go, game director. My bad. Where did this all start from? What was the origin of it? How did this even come about?
Okay, so I've got to go back a little bit. We did a game called Please Comply because we needed to make a game as a studio. And now this sounds really obvious, but we needed to release a game. And so we did a little game jam, and we came up with this game that was based on the Pyramid of Needs, Maslow's Pyramid of Needs, and it was an interactive experience. And we said, like, look, this is going to be a small game, it's going to be a short game, it's a non-replayable game, because we need to get a game out there. And what we tried to do, like, these are the confines of what we're releasing. We got that released, and afterwards we thought, doing the game jam thing actually worked really well. So let's do like pitches and game jams within the studio for some ideas.
And I think critically, like, your studios, you're quite a small team, right?
Yeah. There's 3 or 4 of us.
Okay, gotcha.
Of core members at any one point. We bring in other people, like, to help out with audio and things that we're not able to do. But generally, like, there's 3 or 4 of us at most times. At some points, we've been bigger and stuff like that. So I don't want to. So people go like, well, "Hold on a minute, I remember you being bigger." Like, this.
But that's it. It's a small team. You need to have that focus, and I think critically, like you say, like, one of the things that a lot of teams struggle with is getting their first game out the door, so that they can get quickly to the lessons learned and start moving on to game 2. And I say this as someone, I'm pretty sure you met me back when I was finishing my first game, and then my team dissolved because we all went off and did other things, so we never got to game 2. Whereas Please Comply, it's out, it's on Steam and Itch. I double checked, it's still there. You can go and get it.
It's still there.
And now we're on game 2. So
Now we're game 2. In fact, this is game 3 for us because actually we're working on our first game, which we did all the mistakes that every indie studio does. I'd like to say that we didn't do it, but we did it.
I wasn't going to bring this up, but I remember you working on that game before you did Please Comply, because it was like dreams and nightmares and
basically Welcome Home is a story about we're trying to do like a murder mystery that you can play forwards as well as back, and it's a horror murder mystery. And I think we might still work on that, but we needed to redefine the focus. This is what we what we learned from that, right? not redefine the focus, like refine the focus on that.
Yeah.
There was quite a few things going on there, and I'm being very self-critical. We did a really great game demo that we were, shopping around, but already we were getting like the game industry kind of being quite critical of that at the time. But in me shopping it around, the team were just sitting there like twiddling their thumbs because we couldn't change too much in the game if we weren't going to get funding and what have you. So I said, well, let's do a game jam. You guys, have fun. Like, just come up with an idea, and we came up. And I said, like, but we want to release this, right? So this is like, make it as finite as possible. And we did, and it came out. I would love to say to great acclaim, but no one knew that we were releasing it. I think, like if you don't tell anyone you're releasing a game, you just go release, publish now. There you go. The reception that you get is the one that you expect to get. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. But like, it's I think is kind of the key part, because if you then, and I think critically, if you have the commitment and you have some sort of financial mechanism, whatever it is, whether this is like the thing you're doing in the evenings and weekends or whatever, if you still have that drive to then go forward, then you can learn a lot more from it. And I think critically getting to I think this is personally quite exciting, seeing Harvest Hunt coming out, is because you're still going and you're still here, and this is your game too, and you're going for something bigger and more ambitious and quite exciting, because a lot of indie teams don't make it to game 2 for exactly the reasons we've talked about. The scope is too big. They lose momentum after the first one. They take too long to get the first one out.
No, absolutely. I think like you probably say this to everybody, but if you're getting into games, make the smallest game. In fact, there is a studio called No Code that I wish I'd followed a little bit better. They're now working on Silent Hill. But the first game, and it's not on their website anymore, and it annoys me a little bit because it obviously was a mobile phone game, right?
Was it?
Yeah, it's this little mobile phone game. And then they did like Stories Untold, which is a whole little sequence of stuff. And then they did Observation. And you can see the scaling up of games all the way up to Silent Hill, right? Like amazing, great. I think that's the stage. Make a small game and get it out. And publishing it is more important than you think, because it's not just the fact that you've got a game out there. It's now that you've had to integrate into Steam's back end. You now have to do achievements. Well, you don't have to, but you do achievements. You now know how to. You should, right? Then you need to do all this whole Steam page, understand tagging. Then you start understanding the whole back end of Steam. I mean, this is all like stuff that somebody else does, right? No, it's your team. This is what you do, right?
Oh God, I've been there.
And then if you're going to do a second game, it's really good because then you can do some tests with the game that you already have out.
Yeah.
Right? So you could do, well, what happens if we change the name of it? Can I change the name of it? Like, can I do A/B testing on changing the name of it? Let's have a look at how many people find my game if I call it, I don't know, roguelike master compared to please comply or whatever, you know what I mean? And see what you get, right? And if you don't have that, you're not able to test those kind of postulations, right?
The thing that even I've worked on a few games for other studios in the last while. I was interim technical director at Spilt Milk Studios for a while, helping out Andrew Smith, because they've got Trash Goblin coming out hopefully this year. I helped kick that project off, but critically, and even then with some of my own work, one of the things that's really useful, like you say, going through the whole learning how the Steam backend works, is you into all those things that the first time around you did at the end, because you're I don't want to hook the Steam backend in. I don't want to have to figure out how to do all this sort of stuff. Your continuous integration and your pipeline for deploying onto Steam, you do all that at the start of the next project. We had Steam integration on, actually Trash Goblin. We had Steam integration on Trash Goblin within about a week of us starting on it proper. We had a little prototype internally, and then let's put it in the Steam backend, because critically, we pitched it at the London Games Festival last year on a Steam Deck.
Oh, nice. So you can just show it. There you go. Much better than
it's running on a Steam. It's running on the Steam platform, and we built all that integration.
You can go here, have a play.
Oh, right? Without a doubt, I think that's one of that was a very formative exercise for both myself and, because I was there with Andrew Smith and we did all the pitching together. That was hugely formative for us, because to do the pitching, it was so much easier to just wake up a Steam Deck and give it to someone and just let them hold it, than boot up a laptop and maybe open up a presentation and maybe
I was doing exactly that.
You were there.
Right.
God,
but doing the Steam Deck, that's genius. That's absolute genius.
And next game, I think critically one of the things that worked well for us was that the game isn't it isn't requiring a huge amount of resources,
right.
So we could get it running. It was fairly smooth on a Steam Deck from day one. And it was like, okay, this is indicative of what the benchmark we're wanting to try and hit. We want to try and get a smooth 60 frame per second experience on Steam Deck. But even then, I spoke with some other devs who were there and they had their game on Steam Deck. I'm not going to name names or whatever, because their version, because they were like, oh, it's really janky and it's kind of broken. And I played it and it was running at like 20 frames a second, which it's a dev build. Of course, it runs chonky at this point. It's like you've been making it for like 4 months or whatever, but they're like, oh, we haven't made it performant. I'm like, no, but again, you've got that ability to just hand it to someone and off you go.
And the people, and especially in an event like that, you would hope that the people that you're showing this stuff to understand that you haven't done a performance part. If they start deducting points and saying like, oh, we're not going to fund you because of that, probably not the people that you want to go with anyway.
You don't want money from these people, right? That's insane. But yeah, bouncing back to Harvest Hunt. So you guys, you put out Please Comply, and then was this also a jam that then led to Harvest Hunt?
Yeah, we came up with a few ideas. Our game director came up with an idea. I don't know how much I can say that we went through a number of titles, and I think this was called Cursed Village for quite a long while. And Valentina worked with this actual physical cards, right? She put like values and say, okay, if you go this and come out and then you get this, and showed me the prototype, like literally a video of a whole bunch of cards going in, and now you go and play and how we do that. And so we thought, okay, we can do this let's try and doing this in a year. We then met at Develop, because we're a remote studio. We're a fully remote studio. So we used the first day of that week of Develop to meet up. So we all met up and we came up with this idea on how to break it down and how to organize the game, that we had like this core mechanic. So we came up with a mechanic that we were going to follow through, not like the moment to moment, but the whole like season stuff.
Yeah.
And then it's just a matter of saying like, how many seasons are we going to have? Well, that's a money bit of string kind of thing. How many, what's going to happen? And then we kind of worked it. We had this idea that we were going to release it, in early access, and then I pulled out from that after doing a lot of kind of more research. We're like, oh, let's go to early access, see, and start getting stuff there. But one, I don't think at the time we had enough wish lists, and two, it's not the kind of game. All games that you're telling a story, weirdly enough, and people that will play through the game will uncover some of the part of that story.
Right.
Can't really put that out on early access, right? Because
I guess like if you're focused, because you're going to use early access to refine mechanics, but maybe even build features or whatever else. But then, like, if lore is so intrinsic to the story, to the core of the experience, then those early access players are kind of left dangling, maybe for a long time, until more lore.
More lore.
We need more lore.
Gimme. We did and there was a lot of there's a lot of refinement going in the game, but the early part of that, we had that. I remember some other prototypes I was working on, but that one seemed to be the more interesting one from my point of view, because it encapsulates three different things that you don't normally see together, right? Like first person play, horror, card deck building kind of mechanics, and lore, which I love, because you need to, I always think you need the lore to be the reason of why you're playing this game, right?
Right.
The why you're going to be doing all of the things that you're going to be doing in the game, right? The motivation, the real nice payoff, as well as and the card. And I just thought there was like a lot of interesting stuff there that people will enjoy and haven't really seen before.
I was going to say the artistic direction is quite different. Actually, I think that the visuals of the game are quite striking in that it is, you're not quite leaning. There's a lot of yellows and amber kind of hues to it. It's dark, but it's also quite bright and vivid. Yeah. And it also the art style is quite interesting, because you're kind of pulling from it's kind of like Eastern European folklore. Is that it's
actually just not Eastern, but it's European folklore. It's Portuguese, a lot of stuff. So like we were, before we got into this, during we got into this, I might try and find some of the pictures, but I shared it around the other day. It's like the weird, you go to Norway and you go like, why are there horses on heads on sticks? It's like that kind of weirdness that you go to somewhere where you think is completely Western, but then Morrismen, people, right? Like what, right? Do you know what I mean? I mean, no offense to any people, to Morris dancers out there, but it's just like a thing that is kind of diametrical to what you expect. And our artist Uriel is from Portugal, and there's a lot of inspiration from the kind of traditions and traditional dresses from Portugal. And in any other areas. And so let's delve into this. And I always love the weird thing that you'll have, like, you go to a town in Spain and that one day they're going to throw tomatoes at each other. And you're like,
what's going on?
What? And that's the kind of the inspiration that we had. I mean, the game is set kind of, they're escaping a plague and they go to this village of Luna Nova. That's something the inhabitants had left. So it's kind of like a rug pull of like, oh, we're going to Luna Nova, everything's going to be great. And you get there and it's not. And they're trapped. And things have gone wrong. Something has brought everything wrong. And we're trying to show that through the art. So a lot of the stuff that environment building, we have a lore, we have a whole bunch of lore. But we have different layers of lore. I don't know if that's a good way to describe it. That one of them is environment storytelling that's telling you kind of what's happened in this place. And I'm not gonna
go play the game. Go play the game. Go and find out. Go play the demo. The footage you're seeing right now is all from the demo. Go play.
And the art style, we have to play to our strengths, right? And Uriel's been amazing because he did all the art in 3D and stuff like that. So I say we're a really small team. And we created there was some like inspiration from tarot cards to put some of that stuff. So we got some very interesting art and into the cards. But also we wanted to give this idea that it was all done by them. That a lot of the art and things in the game are done by the people in the village, right? People, right. So it's kind of like not quite diegetic, but do you know what I mean? I was like trying to go like, well, the music has to be bone music. It's going to be made with the stuff that you have there, right? If there's going to be music, it's going to be done by, it's not going to be like
it's reinforcing that locale, like you say, like having if the art was too clean in the UI elements of it, or if the music didn't feel, it was discongruent, I guess, or incongruent with the environment, that it doesn't all come together in a way that is hopefully satisfying. I guess there's, in terms of actually building it, like you say, it's a small team, and it is, but it's interestingly, like, I wouldn't have said it's a small game, but it's a very tightly defined game in many respects. So like you have the field, because it's like the day-night cycle. You do your prep and then you go in, and it's almost like it's actually, it was funny because I thought about it as like extraction shooter as horror game.
Okay, right,
because you're going in to do an objective and you gotta get out. And I haven't actually tried. Can I just bail Like just turn around and run out. I haven't actually tried doing it yet.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it's got this kind of extraction shooter vibe to it. It's like I need to go in and do a thing, but there's a horrible monster in the field and everything else. And so how has that been in terms of the implementation process? Because on one hand, you're very focused in terms of here's your field space. There's going to be some procedural elements to it, and then you've got your monster and the space. And that's the core game. But then you're building all these extra layers on top of that manipulate it. Like, how difficult has that been, or what challenge has there been in trying to keep that, I guess, critically, because you need to keep that core gameplay part running at all times. Because you're a small studio, you always want to have a vertical ready to show someone. What challenge has there been in trying to get that together?
Right. There's been a couple of challenges. And I'll tell you how we overcame them. So one of the challenges is being able to put all of the locate things in the different things in the field to make it feel okay. So, and I say okay to make it feel like a playable game, right? So, and all of that has been. I wish there was like a more magic sauce. And Valentina, we'll get onto the. Maybe you should get Valentina on the episode so she can.
We can have a post-launch deep dive. That'll work.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a deep dive with Valentina because she can give you all of that. But as a studio, we did a lot of playtesting and getting a lot of feedback. So the playtesting is not just like, hey, go play it. What do you think? It's like, and record it, because we record people's face and them playing the game. So we find places where things don't make sense. So then we go, okay, now you're going to play season 3. Rather, like, you played that, now you know how to play it. Let's play season 3. And we can see whether the balancing is working there. And that's how we've got a lot more feedback. I mean, playtest it is the only way that I can think of doing this kind of game, right?
Yeah.
And we have challenges and we have abilities that come in later on in the later parts, because it becomes much more difficult than the demo, right? So the demo is kind of nice in this. It is right. It gets.
I thought the demo ramped up a little bit towards the end.
Yeah, I think. I must double check, but I think the demo. I think we throw in a few things from later on, just so you can get a bit of
give you some flavor,
give you a feel, right? But also some of the things that we're saying was like make all of these variables, because as I'm promoting the game, but also we might want to add some more stuff later on. So being able to add new abilities, new tools, or things like that should be. I mean, it's not going to be like an entry in a spreadsheet or anything like that, but there'll be art and there'll be like maybe more mechanics, but it should be fairly simple.
Like that you should be able to prototype it and get a version of it in the build in a relatively short period, or at least have a pipeline that makes that attainable. Like, I remember even with shoot footing, we were trying to figure that out. It's just like adding stuff in that's just going to be, I could get a rough crap version of that running in like a day, and then what do we need to get it looking as is? I mean, if you want to say like, we're going to add 3 new monsters and things like that, that's going to take a lot more work. But being able to say, all right, we're going to add a new ability does this, or we add a, I don't know, I'm making this up. This is, please don't take this as going to add into the game. But let's say we're going to do a timed run, right? It says that you literally, like, I don't know, your health will run down very quickly in a matter of 3 minutes. So you got 3 minutes to go and do something, as well as the devour running around, right? So that might be something that we want to add. I'm making this up on the spot, so please don't think that that's what's confirmed. It's in the build. No.
Yeah, Dan. No, but you know what I mean. It's like if we're trying to do things like that, we should be able to do that, because we knew going in that we don't have the team, the time or the team to be able to do a massive game, right? So. Right. I mean, it's interesting to contrast it to Please Comply, because Please Comply, we set out to make a 15-minute game, right? Right. And our player stats from Steam come between 15 and 18 minutes, like all the time. So I'm really proud of that, because that's what we set out to do. This is where it came out, right? Harvest Hunt is a little bit longer. We're looking around 8 hours, but it's kind of like. That's the idea. You can play it a few times. You can fail and you get kind of different endings. It's not like branching ending system, but you won't uncover enough. Right. And the game works is nice enough to say, okay, well, you didn't uncover everything, but here's things that you can uncover, you know?
And so, a lot of, again, it's like there's a lot of extra little layers there that you're having to just make sure all stitched together, right?
Yeah, and some of that stuff comes in quite late, you know? Yeah. I mean, we planned it forever, of course, but like being able to, we know what's happening underneath the hood in the engine, but surfacing that into the mental model of a player has been actually the more polished that we've been doing.
Excuse me. That's a good question, actually. So playing the demo, you know, the demo does a lot of the onboarding for the whole. The core mechanics, but also it gets in all the mutators. It gets in the whole process of your planning, your site, your run. So it's I'm going to build all. You know, what has been the biggest challenge, do you think, in trying to onboard players who are new to it? Either, I guess you're going to have two extremes, right? Because you had people that were playing the demo and recording it, who are playing it remotely, and then also you've been doing events. So, like, has there been a difference there?
Yeah, well, I don't know if there's been a difference. I can't really compare those two. But from watching a lot of people, we were trying, and we're probably still trying to smoothly onboard somebody. Like there's a lot of people that like one thing that bugs me, and I realize what has to be done in bigger games is this is how you do crouch. You do this whole environment that's like, press left stick to go forward, you know. It's like, and now you got this whole environment where you like moving forward, and we don't have that ability to handhold you through everything, right? So we have to pick and choose what we're going to hold you through, right? So let's handhold you through the difficult parts. What's in, you know. So I don't know if when you played it, was anything difficult about navigating the environment? Probably not.
You did actually give prompts though for certain mechanics. So like we did actually, because I think critically you communicate that crouching is valuable in that it reduces your noise footprint in proximity to the devourer. Right. And so I get a crouch prompt, and it's like, great. So you're giving me it in context. Like I actually quite liked how that first night, it teaches you quite a few mechanics very early. Yeah. But it does it in a in a live fire exercise, I think is the best way to describe it, because the devourer is there, and so it's like you could go in and do everything that's needed from that first mission without the devourer even seeing you. Like actually, if I remember right, I did everything, and then I hadn't even seen the devourer, but I knew it was there, and so I decided to just
and in early builds, I think he would. There was a chance that he'll be very close to you.
Yeah, I think
you could bump into him like within seconds.
Yeah, I think eventually I managed to catch its attention because I'm just like, oi, but
oi, big beastie,
oh you big beastie, come and get your ambrosia, you dick. But there you go. If you ever do the Scottish expansion, you know who to call up. I like that. You know, like you say, like trying to get that onboarding part, you actually managed to put that into that opening level. But you had to come to that conclusion, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were early ideas of like doing a cold open. So like you go straight into the game, or a version of it. We might still do that. I don't know, like again. But I think the main point was like, the point I was trying to get was that like a lot of mechanics are very obvious, and you don't need a whole level to know about crouching, because if we had like a bigger team and we're owned by a bigger game studio, there would probably be a whole level of this in which you learn how to crouch and the consequences of crouch and stuff like that. But I think people get it, right? Like treat gamers like gamers, like they get it. And you got it and went, all right, this is important. You've told me this is important, so I'm going to use it, right? And, oh, look, these bowls give you health. Health might have to be important here. This is a resource that now you're balancing out, right? I mean, health is important, kids. Look after yourselves. But, you know, and that was the focus that was a battle that we had to, not battle, it wasn't that bad, but that was what we wanted to really focus on, like what's important at that point. Some of the stuff is contextual. So for example, if the devourer spots you like first time, it's kind of like, well, this is what's happening. You've been spotted. And that's why we pause it. That tutorialization went through a few iterations. Tutorialization is really hard, and it should be, but it's kind of like the second thing you have to do.
It's an interesting challenge for sure, because I've experienced that in the demo where it's like, you have awoken the devourer, or you have caught its attention, and the game pauses and it goes, hey, you dumb biffed it. That thing that you weren't supposed to do, you have now done it.
I was talking about crouching, right? Like, I'm not making noise. You did that.
You did it. Well done. But I think it's interesting because I can't think of any other way to do that, because particularly I think there's one of your pause prompts comes up when the devourer attacks you for the first time, and it's literally in your face. And it's like, the game pauses like, you are now going to be attacked by the devourer. And it's like, right, because also you kind of want to teach them about that in this key moment, and also I think freezing the game at that point is so valuable, because if you put up an information prompt while this is going on, the player's just like, Jesus Christ, and they're just mashing the buttons, particularly because you literally mash the buttons to break away from the devourer. So I'm like, fucking hell, trying to get away. Like, if you put anything on the screen, I'm not going to.
Whilst you're panicking, would you mind following these sets of instructions? Touch your nose and rub your belly. Yeah, no, we had to pause it. Well, there was a lot of discussions on how we could do that. That ended up the most obvious, not obvious, but most smoother way, because then next time you're like, and it's still dramatic, right? But it's also nice to give a bit of a jump. The devourer went through. We didn't have that, by the way. The devourer attacked you, and the devourer attacked you. That was like a you couldn't get out of that for a long time.
Was that like a one-hit death sort of thing?
It was a one-hit death thing, and you would escape, and you'd be just there being attacked. And talked to a few people, and like the feedback, it was like coming back, and I think it was like, when you train dogs, right? I don't know if you have dogs or anything like that, but I know you have a couple. I have 3 who are here at the moment. But one of the things about training dogs is not always to give a reward, right? So if you always give a dog a reward, they get bored very quickly. Right. So like if you say, come here and you give him a treat, come here and give him a treat, come here and give him a treat, come here, it's not going to come here because he knows like he's going to get a treat, whatever. But it's kind of boring. So one of the parts of that is being able to, like, you do random treats, like, well done, like you give a high value treat, well done, no treat. But so like they never know if they're going to get a treat, so they'll always come back for it. Right. So that's what I was trying to do with the devourer, which was, it might attack you. You might be able to get out of it. You might not. But if you always got attacked and it was always a one hit, I noticed my heart rate go down. Like the terror of the devourer wasn't there all the time. After the third or fourth time you got attacked and the same thing happened, you might as well go and make a cup of tea and come back. You done? You finished? Okay, great. Let's go back. But now with the devourer attacking you, you having a chance to get away, you're now involved in the attack as a player, right? You're involved in this situation rather than immediately cutting you out of Luna Nova. And
particularly, I guess, if it's a roguelike, if the player's dying and then it's like it's resetting the whole season all over again, from one interaction with the devourer, then you're not giving enough space to. You need space to fail in order to learn, right? Yeah. So I guess. Absolutely. So I think that's interesting, because you're talking about that heart rate, I think, as well. Like, if you've been attacked by it a couple of times and you're on the verge of death, but you're so close to finishing that night in the field, that's when the tension really begins to kick in. It's like, can I lose this thing long enough? Can I maybe there's some health over at the tree, and I also left like one of the grenade things, which is over there. I need to go and pick it up. So can I make it back over there without the devourer finding me again? And do I have to take the long way round? And I spent a lot of time doing the detective vision. As I could. But that's it, mask vision. I couldn't remember what it is. I'm like Batman vision. I'm just looking around trying to find things.
I mean, it is a detective vision. But ironically enough, it's what we put a lot of the UI. It kind of grew out of that. We really didn't want to have a lot of UI in the because that kind of gets between you. Like if we show your health and you show some of the modifiers, so you have a little bit of UI, but not all the time. We're trying to like limit that a lot, but we need it. But you still need it, right? Because like players go like, "What am I doing?"
Yeah,
like, where am I? What am I doing?
Even
it's like
just a reminder of what are the active cards in play, for example, on that run.
Exactly.
Which is super handy. I think that was a real bugbear of mine in, I think it was the last Call of Duty that came out. Was I'd have to die and change class to remind myself of what my active perks were.
Oh, really?
For like ages. I think they finally fixed it in the UI, but for a long time, like if I'm running around, I don't know what my active perks are because I can't see them, and it would maybe show you them very briefly when you spawned in or something, but I'm like, hang on, what am I, what's my thing, what am I doing, I can't remember. Or like actually even like what my daily challenges were, you couldn't see them in the pause menu, and I'm like, what the fuck am I meant to be doing here? So I'd have to like die or like wait until the end of the match to I think eventually they patched it in, but like the ability to just stop for a second and refresh yourself on like one tiny bit of information, which could have an impact on how you're playing, I think is really valuable. So finding somewhere to put it in there.
I mean, it had to be that. I mean, that was the first one, but that, as I said, like we had this balance of like me with my prima donna creative director going like, oh no, there has to be no UI. Everything has to be diegetic. You have to be immersed. And the other side of like my game director going like, yeah, but people need to know what cards they have, like, or get around the environment. Even though the environment, I mean, I've been running around Luna Nova's farmlands for a while now. I still get lost, so, and that's the nice thing because of hopefully panic makes you lose where you are, right? If you always know where you're at. But having said that, we did a lot of designing the environment. We had a great lighting artist, Hamada, come in and define the areas. We had like very simple ways of doing it, but then we did like lots of work in the environment to make it very readable. Right. For example, the escape routes are there available. You can see your exit signs on the left. Really nicely done, but they're always there, right? So, like, if you're trying to like run the hell out of the farmlands with the ambrosia, you should be able to know which way to run.
Yeah,
right?
The fact that it's like smoke pillars that you can actually see outside of the field is actually quite handy, because I think one time I did just literally go and run.
It might not be the best way because it's not, like.
No, I ran into a fence.
Yeah.
And then I said, oh shit, oh no, because I think the devourer was like 20 feet to my left or something, and I'm like, can I just run it? No. Try to find where am I going around the fence? I guess it's probably worth. I can't sit here with my AI and Games t-shirt on without talking about the devourer itself. I guess that's also been an interesting balancing act in trying to create a monster that is active in the space, but is also not like permanently 6 feet behind you.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of the things of that monster are that it has got its own, like any good villain has got its own goals, right? Not quite down into the A level. Its goal is to go and eat the ambrosia in the level, right? So it's busy doing stuff, and you're being the annoying thing getting in its way. So it's not a goal-oriented, task-based system or something like that. But I knew you would like be thinking about that.
I was like, as soon as I played it, I was trying to unpack it because that's how my brain works.
Yeah, but I think if you look at it from one way, it's got a lot of things that you'd expect from an AI, but with a whole bunch of clauses that you can't have, right? Because it's a scary AI. It's like, I know it actually came from inspiration from, as you said, like from Alien Isolation. It's like, don't step on the tail, right? You need to know that where the player is so that we don't like spawn next to him or, go next to the player right when you I don't want the devourer to be going next to the player. This is not all the time. Sorry, am I breaking the illusion that he
the kayfabe is being violated here? But yeah, it's like.
And after the attack, for example, like the devourer has to gameplay wise has to bugger off, right, somewhere.
Yeah,
right? Because after it's attacked you, can't come back next to you and then attack you again, because then you get into the player's going to be like, screw you. So like through a lot of game testing, we knew that was going to happen. So it's not like.
It's even coming back to that whole thing of, oh, right, it's got me, I'm going to go and make a cup of tea. Like, if it's just going to attack you and then immediately attack you again, and you don't really have an opportunity for to get away and to recover from that slightly. I mean, if you still manage to exacerbate it and it attacks you again, then that's fine. I think there's always an interesting balancing act, I guess, between like giving the player enough rope to hang themselves with, or make a very pretty bow.
yeah, exactly. And that's part of the AI that we worked on a lot. To be honest with you, I think we're still going through some of those optimizations from now seeing more and more people play. We run a play test, so we got a lot of feedback. We've had now with our publisher, they've played it a lot more. So it's kind of, when you have friendly players, in the sense that, people are very happy to stream it, and now we're watching people stream it and stream the demo as well. So it's kind of like we're like sneaking in there going, oh, okay, that's what they're doing. That's great. Maybe let's
learning from them.
Yeah. Like, well, that's a bug. The player might not know that that's a bug, but we're like, yeah, well, I did it. Do that.
It might work, and it's a funny thing, I guess, also because sometimes you might get bugs that are conducive to the player's experience, but you're watching it going, "No, that's clearly a bug," and they just don't know.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you don't go and tell anyone about it. You just go back to like, guys, it shouldn't be.
It's all features.
It's all features. Features all the way down.
How's the team feeling? I guess looking at it at the moment, we're about 6 weeks out, I think. We're recording this about 6 weeks from launch. This episode will probably go live, if it goes live the way that I expect it to. We will probably be releasing this episode on with about 3.5 weeks before launch. Mm-hmm. So late April, early May, this episode will go out. So
right. It's doing really well. A lot of the stuff that was going to be a massive stressor was taken away from us when we found a publisher in Neon Hive. A lot of the marketing, a lot of the things that start happening right now before launch, right?
Yeah.
And they've taken it on from us. Of course, there's other tasks that you have to do, because now you're doing a lot more marketing. There's a lot of art and screenshots and whatever, a lot of stuff that becomes stressful, but at least it's not massively stressful. We're pretty happy with I'm so English about that. We're really happy about the build right now.
And also, I mean, shout out to Neon Hive as well. Like, I've known of the team at Neon Hive for a little while now. So I was quite happy to see that Harvest Hunt is being published by them as well, and it's not just kind of PR side of it as well, that they're very much immersed in the project. So I was like, oh, that's like two groups of people that I like now working together on a thing. This makes me happy. But I was going to say that takes the stress. I was going to say it does take a lot of the stress off of it, right? Because it's adding new stress to you, because they're like, well, we need this from you, and we need this from you, and we need this from you. But you're not. I was going to say, I distinctly recall, I think, when you were working on, back when it was Please Comply, I think you were on Twitter like every day, plugging it in some way. And like, that's not something you have to worry about.
I mean, you got people that are much, much funnier and better than me on Twitter doing all of that and the interaction.
Whatever.
It's going to be Twitter until we...
Actually, funnily enough, I found out the launch date from a post by Neon Hive. And then I reached out to you off the back of that, because I'm not on Twitter as much, but I was on another social media platform, and then I was, oh, hey, look, Harvest Hunt's got a date. Yeah. Right.
We're everywhere. I'm
going to drop Mark a message.
That's been so fun as well, because of getting insights into streamers being able to start, like, now I get notifications of the things that they're doing, because like people reply to Villainous, they're behaving as us, and it's like, oh, that person streamed it, this other person streamed it, we're getting it. It's really good. It's really good. But yeah, so we're in a really good state. We were planning to release much earlier, before we talked to Neon Hive, right? So we were like, okay, we'll just put it out there, because we'd spend like a year looking for a publisher before talking to Neon Hive. And this has not been a good year for finding publishers either. Yeah, last year was like a terrible year. Everything started moving, like all the people that anyway, that's a hell of another conversation will come in.
Yes, indeed. We could litigate that another time.
But as a team, we were like, okay, well, we don't have a publisher. This is last year. Let's release it when would be a good time. And we talked to Rami Ismail and different, people about when would be a good time to release. We decided the time to release. That was all right, fine. Then we started being published by Neon Hive, and so we had to come up with a different release date for marketing and to do the magic that they're going to do, right? That has been really great, because it's given us that bit that we wouldn't have had, which was like, now we can polish. So all we've been doing for the last few months is polish, all the things that were like, if we could only get to this, maybe version 1. Now we've done a lot of those nice things. Weird stuff like interstitial screens, like loading screens and stuff like that. Even just feel like a game. Like,
I remember, back when I did Sure Footing years ago, the bug list, and you're having to be far more. You've got a date, and you're like, right, well, I'm trying to balance all these other biz dev things, but also here's the bug list I've got, and here's the high priority ones, and here's the ones I'm probably going to ship with. So if you're cutting some of that workload off of you as well, and also you've now got a bit longer because the publishing side is like, no, we want to build up anticipation and make some noise about this. You can look at that bug list a little bit more and be like, actually,
that's doable.
We can do that. Even, and then of course the horrible bit. Did you have any feature creep moments at that point where you then went, oh, hang on, is there something we could quickly add? And then you collectively were like, no.
Yeah and no, but luckily I work with a really great team that we have been white. Oh yeah, good. Put it down in a ticket and we'll estimate it next sprint. Let's not disrupt our goal all the time, right?
Right.
And now we're getting a lot more going, okay, that'll go into version 1, because 6 weeks out we're not going to be doing, I've got a great idea for the beastie, he can do that, really. We're going to do a new model or something like that, and new sound or whatever that would be massive, no. But we managed to put stuff that's good, and I'm hoping that some of the other stuff that we're planning for. I mean, I'm no promises, and you don't know what I'm promising, but stuff that we've been doing for point 1 version or post-launch version, we might be able to get in on release if it all goes well. But it's been nice to be able to have time to plan all those things, right? Being able to do all the pipelines, to be able to say all right, we could launch with this stuff, and it's not going to affect the production, the shipping build, and we can keep on working on the next build as well.
Mm. So speaking of, I guess we got May 22nd is the launch date. What is coming up for launch? What can players expect in that launch build when they get their hands on it?
When they get their hands on it, I think this massively updated lore. We need, and when I say lore, we changed around some very core fundamental parts of the story.
Ooh.
So in the demo version, I think you just, I can't remember if we've updated the demo version with it, but now we bring in this idea of an investigator right at the beginning. of the game. So
Right.
like you start getting this dual. We've got like 3 narrative strands throughout the game, and that's been the kind of a real big change. A big obvious change in the game, but it wasn't a massive change. I don't know how to explain it. It's a real bang for buck moment of being able to put in this idea, going throughout all of it, and it really paid off in how you view the game, or how you view the what's happening around here,
right.
or the stories that you're unlocking, right? Like putting a good lens on who's looking at it.
Like reinforcing and contextualizing the experience a lot more in like a satisfying way.
Yeah, contextualizing the mystery, right? So it's like putting like active questions in the player's mind. So like, okay, so yeah, I'm going out and hunting the beastie. Why? And once I get a satisfaction of, beating the beastie or beating a season, what have I achieved, right? We were able to put a lot of that in, and that's going to be, because I guess in the demo you don't see the end of the season, so you don't see the end of the season properly, right? So like seeing the end of the season, they go like, this is what's happened to Antonia, who you play as first. That's going to be like the real payoff. I think the demo was good to show people the gameplay, get them interested in it, but it's kind of like, I don't know, percentage is a weird thing, but like 10% of really what's there, like, it's very little of what's there. We've got like 4 other seasons with like loads more mechanics and fiends and what have you that are running around, and a whole ton of lore that you'll be exploring.
So it's all these like additional layers so that core experience that we're seeing in the demo is largely there, and then it's just here's all the things that will reward you for continued play, I guess.
Is that, but lots more of it. So, for example, we have a compendium. I can't remember if the demo's got the compendium. It might do. That tells you all about the things in. Remember, I've been playing like 3 or 4 different types of builds. Like, so excuse me if I don't know what's in which one. So we have a thing called the compendium, which is basically an encyclopedia of what's happening, and you unlock entries in the compendium, and each one of those things like expands as you unlock. So yeah, that's going to be really fun to see. From my point of view, I'm really into like people like delving into the mystery of Luna Nova, as well as having fun out there with a Devourer. Just going out and going toe to toe. But I think it's those questions that people do, it's kind of like, we wanted to have a moment of like high stress, but you have to have like the release of being, okay, right, I'm back. I can read about what's been happening. Okay, that's kind of weird. Let me go out there and do a bit more to figure out what's going on.
I like
the whole game a few times.
I do like that the day-night cycle allows for, and I think enriching the day part or the prep phase does a lot more to recontextualize what's happening when you're in the field, but also giving, the more context or the more like narrative framing you provide for that, it helps give the player a bit more impetus. It gives them stakes. It gives them a greater understanding of the relevance of what they're doing. And then also, hopefully, it's probably going to notch up the tension, I think, a little bit, slightly as well.
Yeah, I mean, notch up the tension, notch up the horror in it, maybe the existential horror from it, and notch up and give clues of the environment that you've been running around, and maybe recontextualize it as you go along.
Right.
Which is, because you're going to be in the same place and you're looking at the same stuff, and you're like, all right, yeah, okay. I've just run past that a few times, or crawled past that a few times. But as you get the lore, you're going to be like, oh.
So that's what that is.
Yeah.
I did like even just having the cards come out, and you're like, oh no, like this isn't good. It can do what now?
And hopefully you have a few more words, because you're like, oh, great, I can be fleet of foot and strong of will, but then you like suddenly you go like, oh, and the monster can do what? Right. Okay.
Yeah, I won't spoil it for anyone, but there was a couple. I think even in the demo, I'm like, oh, that's not good. Oh, what do I do about that? And then it's funny because I immediately forget what I can do. Whatever boon I got, I'm like, oh, fuck that. Like, I'm just looking at the monster side going, shit.
Good. I mean, that's the kind of balance. I mean, this came from, actually, that a lot of that came from our conversation in Develop, which was like, okay, great. Like, you got this, which at the time, the monster was a blue cube. How he has changed.
I mean, critically, I never saw the earlier version of this, but I remember us talking about this over coffee or whatever.
Yeah, and it was like because we had kind of like the monster was the Devourer did that. That was it. There was no progression along, right? You progressed, but the Devourer didn't. Or it might unlock some other stuff, but then we're like, okay, and now we have this idea that the Devourer mutates. Like with each season, that it'll mutate, and the card it'll do something else.
See, there you go, kids. Come and hire me to come and help work on your games, because there you go, nice and easy. I threw that one out for free. And it's going to be in Harvest Hunt on May 22nd. What we'll do is we'll bring this to a close, because I appreciate you have a game to go and finish, and I've taken up too much of your very valuable time.
It was an absolute pleasure.
But Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. It's always good to chat to you. We don't get to chat to each other often enough. And I'll probably bump into you at something sooner. Are you at Develop this year? I know I'm going to be at Develop. I know it.
I need to book the tickets, and we'll be at Develop. We're also at WASD. And
WASD is in like a week and change. I don't know if I'm going to WASD yet. I need to double check whether
we're sharing Harvest Hunt there.
WASD. For all
WASD, yeah, right.
Does anybody actually call it that, or does everyone just call it WASD? I don't know.
I think everyone calls it WASD. I think it's like by the time you said WASD, like people have gone off to another conference.
They're gone. They've moved on. Which, of course, that's what 25th, 27th of April over at the Truman Brewery in London. Tickets are out now, and there'll be lots of other games you can go and play, as well as Harvest Hunt.
Absolutely, not just us, but do come and play ours. And it's going to be an exciting time. Good times.
Speaking of, in the meantime, where can everybody find you and find out more about Harvest Hunt?
On the X Twitter as Mark Drew, or you can come and check out our site at villainous.games, or follow We Are Villainous, because we are.
We'll stick it in. We'll stick all that in the show notes for people if you want to go and dig into that as well. And would rather not type. We do all that for you for free.
Click.
We do all this so you don't have to. But on that, this has been episode 90. Good God, we're almost on episode 20 of the Branching Factor podcast. So be sure to rate us on your platform of choice. If you have questions or comments, leave them on the socials or reach out to us at branchingfactor@aiandgames.com. Don't forget to support us over on Patreon or Substack. And a shout out, of course, to our top tier supporters, Scuppy Pup and Michael Russell. I'll be back with another episode very soon. Mark won't, because Mark's very busy working on his game. But, of course, go and check out Harvest Hunt. And with that, we'll play out the outro music. We're going to get out of here. Thanks for watching, everyone. Take care of yourselves. Bye. The Branching Factor podcast is hosted and produced by me, Tommy Thompson, with support from Anne Sullivan, George Osborne, Mike Cook, and Kwang Yun. Our theme music is provided courtesy of Ben Ridge. The logo and thumbnail art is thanks to Helen Odell. Special thanks to Shraddha Gupta and Phoebe Trigg for additional production support. And of course, to all of you out there listening. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Branching Factor. Wherever you are in the world, be sure to stay safe, have fun, and we'll be back.